Look, all I will say is that if Russia attacks, fires upon, takes a shot at NATO territory, the NATO alliance would respond to that.
Canada's defense chief warns Russia has occupied Arctic bases. What? Wait, what? Why? Oh, could it be because they're on high nuclear alert? Yeah, I thought so. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So guys, I have a doozy of a video for you today. I got 10 different stories that I need to talk about, emails that I've been sent from around the world that are incredibly informative, things that you are not going to hear anywhere else. I cannot triage this information and prioritize it to fit your attention span. You're going to have to stick with me. I have so much stuff to talk about. Okay. First thing I want to get out of the way is, I know it's cliche to say that everybody's plugged into the matrix and only 5% of people are consciousness and blah, blah, blah. And oftentimes that is delivered and packaged in some kind of a political agenda saying, oh, our political side is woke. No, ours is woke. You're a sheep, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that most people do not realize the shift that is occurring right now. And that shift is towards a decoupling between East and West. I'm talking about the US dollar as a reserve currency ceasing to be. What we're seeing right now, whether Russia wins this war or not, which they're likely going to win it, as we're going to talk about in a minute, whether or not they win this war, the fact of the matter is they have now completely and will never come back to the West ever again. They are going eastward now with their 5,000 nuclear weapons. That means we're entering a whole new world. The dividing lines have been drawn, and most people simply do not realize the heightened sense of alert that our authorities and the militaries are going to be on from this point forward. Most people are just sleepwalking through their existence. They have no idea about the importance right now of getting your ass off the grid. You see the Amish beard coming in here? There's a reason for that. That's because we're all going to be Amish soon. And if we're not, we're probably going to be dead. Because the only way to survive what's coming is to have some measure of self-reliance, I do believe. And a part of that is due to the fact that any global issue that we needed to deal with as a species is going to be back burner for decades to come. You could probably imagine what are those collective issues that we face as a species that we're going to have to deal with? Well, I can think of quite a few. One of the main ones is this whole global warming issue. And I know, some of you are going to start throwing around George Soros, Great Reset. They want to get us all in cages and virtual reality headsets and cut down our energy consumption and all the rest. I get you. I really do get you. I understand how people are going to exploit and pounce on the opportunity to make a quick buck. The fact of the matter is the science is virtually undeniable that it is happening. Now, what we do about it is different. And that's how you know that I'm not some BS partisan channel that's just trying to sell you gold bars. There's a lot of channels out there. You see, guys, it's very hard. And there's a reason why this channel isn't more popular. And it's because I do not take the viewpoint of one political party and take the whole basket of ideas of one political party. And that pisses a lot of people off. But I just hope we can agree to disagree. World War III is coming, and that is going to drastically interfere with our ability to mitigate any of these global issues, which are only going to get worse. And trust me, they are going to get exponentially worse. Now, done with the preamble. Let's just jump right into stuff. Now, I do have one little tiny piece of good news, but I'm pretty sure it's just BS. There was a story that came out, and I'm gonna be optimistic today. I'm gonna put this story first, but we're not gonna spend much time on it because I think it's mostly BS. One thing you need to understand about any major headline crises like this, it has a drastic effect on the markets. So positive news, remember when the whole COVID thing was going around? Any positive news that came out, the markets would go up. Any slightly negative news, the markets would go down. So because a lot of the people who control the news cycle also have investments in various things, it's very easy to kind of manipulate the markets to a spread of 500 plus or minus points on the major indices. So, the difference between a positive story on what's going on in Ukraine and a negative story is a potentially 1,000-point spread, possibly even more depending on the severity of the news. So bear that in mind, that information like this could just be a ruse in order to boost the markets for one more day to let the fat cats sell off to all of the naive people who think that everything is going to be okay. I'm going to tell you why I think this is probably BS. Now, Russian and Ukrainian officials gave their most upbeat assessments yet on Sunday of progress in their talks on the war in Ukraine, suggesting there could be positive results within days. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of this. You can go and read the story if you want. This is from Reuters. Just Google the title that I just said, because I'll probably forget to put the links in the description, because guys, I am busy AF. Russia has very few options right now in terms of how they play this thing. They pretty much have to win, and they have to have their demands met in Ukraine. And even if they are able to find some sort of agreement where they just keep the occupied territories and they leave the rest of the country, the fact of the matter is we know that ultimately whatever political parties they leave in place, okay, whatever people from the Zelensky regime that stay in place are going to start to multiply again, and more weapons are going to come in, and we're just going to have this conflict in the future again, and that's the way that they're going to view it, okay? So I think a lot of this talk right now is both sides gaming the other, or attempting to game the other to buy more time or to use it strategically. I don't really think, personally, and I could be wrong about this, I don't think that there's going to be any serious developments made in terms of finding peace between Ukraine and Russia. It's just too much of a complex situation, and Russia knows that were they to make some concessions now, it's just going to cause more problems in the future, and that whole thing is going to flare up again in 2 years, and they're going to have an even bigger problem. So I just simply can't see those types of concessions being made. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but everything else points to a completely different perspective. We're talking about here how they're going to have positive results within days, yet the war is intensifying in a major way right now. And I don't think that would be happening if this had an ounce of truth to it. Now, we need to talk about, first we're going to do the emails, because I think that the emails at this point are probably more, or at least equally accurate to what we're hearing in the mainstream media. And by the emails, I mean emails that I'm getting from people around the world. Now, I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the world, okay? And I certainly am not even the smartest guy in my town, probably not on my block. But one thing I am good is listening to smart people and knowing who's smart and who's stupid. That's the one thing you could maybe take away, a life lesson. It's not about how smart you are, it's your ability to listen to smart people that is going to determine how successful you are in life and ascertaining some measure of truth in this world. So we're going to start with the emails, all right? Good morning. This one's about the mobilization of troops. I will not be giving any identifiers away. I know that makes this information non-falsifiable. Take it for what it's worth. This is qualitative information, not necessarily truth with a capital T. So take it with a grain of salt. Got your bag of salt ready? Okay, let's go. I'm in the MIC in Canada. That means the Military Industrial Complex. I've worked for one of the top 3 MIC companies. Like yourself, I'm very concerned that the population is not being given accurate information and thus the ability to prepare themselves, of course. Many people stay ostriches with their heads in the sand until their house is shelled. Exactly. I want to share that as of last week, Tuesday, I've been asked to prepare to deliver updates for equipment in the field over the next few months. That is out of the scope of my normal deliveries and can only mean the mobilization of forces. I can't be more specific as I'm a man of honor and won't betray the confidentiality I promised in writing, but I thought I could at least provide confirmation of the present upcoming mobilization of forces within Canada and the US. Thank you for all you do. I can tell you that I am on personal high alert and preparing to be ready to bug out to my fallback facility at a moment's notice and don't allow any of my children or my grandchildren to travel right now. I'm keeping all of us close. I hope that we are all wrong in our estimations, but it's not looking that way right now. Now, I must say, I'm getting a lot of emails from the baby boomer generation, and they are the ones who seem to have one of the best grasps on this situation, because you got to remember, they lived through the Cold War. A lot of them, especially the people who are in the military and the analysts, the geopolitical analysts, if you will, and they seem to have the best grasp on this situation. I'm not seeing a lot of millennials like myself who really have put this all together, and I'm listening to these people, and maybe that's why I'm a little bit smart, just a little bit. All right, so Ramstein Air Base. Okay, this one is pertaining to Ramstein Air Base, which is an American air base in Germany. As many of you know, was supposed to be a staging ground to have planes sent from Poland or something like that. That's what Poland was trying to negotiate. U.S. said, no, you send them. Poland said, okay, we'll send them to you and you can send them. U.S. said, no, we're not doing it. So that plan went out the window. But, big but, okay, Sir Mix-a-Lot. I have a bit of information for you from Germany. There is the main European air base for the American Armed Forces in Ramstein Air Base. Something started with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Cargo planes would be flying in formation of rows of 4 to 6 planes back and forth with the trajectory to evacuate troops from Afghanistan. The official flight tracking of the German airspace only registered 1 plane with an active transponder. The others were flying dark without transponder signal in close formation. So that stuff you see on flight radar is what we're supposed to see, okay? Since the 16th of February, exactly the same behavior resumed. 1 plane would be visible on flight tracking websites, and a multitude of planes could be physically observed from the ground flying on the way to southeastern Poland and coming back. This is probably the main airlift transportation route for getting additional equipment to Ukraine. Currently, this happens 4 times a day, where cargo planes will fly in this described manner on a mentioned route. Now, I have seen this myself on flight radar, where, and maybe somebody can explain this to me in the comment section below, maybe there's something about it, but U.S. military planes flying in circles, in loops, over and over and over and over again. Now, I thought that those might be some kind of reconnaissance planes. And when I say flying in circles, I don't mean in Ukraine airspace, but just outside of Ukraine airspace, skirting the Baltic Sea in Hungary or Poland or one of those countries that surrounds it. So this to me, well, to this guy anyway, signifies that there might be something at work, but let's just let him explain it because I'm an idiot. Currently, this happens up to 4 times a day where cargo planes fly in this described manner on the mentioned route. Additionally, to this, there are U.S. Air Force tankers stationed in the Ramstein Air Base as well. Those refueling planes can be seen, fact that observed flying to Poland and staying there in circles for refueling purposes before returning to Ramstein Air Base. There appears to be preparation for drills and the ability to do mid-air refueling right next to the Ukrainian border. This allows fighter jets stationed all over Europe to be deployed and refueled prior to entering a potential combat zone, which strongly increases the operational distance and time and removes the need to have those planes stationed close to the eastern border of the NATO territory. So we're hearing all this stuff about a no-fly zone and how they want to send planes to Ukraine, even though there's a good likelihood, to be brutally honest, that any planes, especially the ones that they're trying to send, would be shot down because the Russian missile defense is just too good, unless they had some really good maneuvers which could neutralize those surface-to-air missiles, which it's possible, but not likely in the small amount, the small fleet that they're projecting they might send. But this guy is saying that this mid-air refueling might have something to do with this. Now, again, I don't know if this is related to drones or reconnaissance or what it is, but it's just something to be mindful of, okay? Remember, there's a lot of stuff going on that we simply do not see. Now, along that same vein, this one is very interesting as well. So, dear Canadian prepper, me again. This guy has provided me a lot of information. Thank you very much. Traffic cameras on motorways all over Europe are down. Okay, qualitative statement there. I don't know if it's valid or not. Do your research. Take this with a grain of salt. I don't know how it is in Canada, but here in Europe, all major motorways have their own live webcams where you can see how traffic is going. Well, they are down now. The reason is simple. He's going to give us his theory here. There are massive troop deployments ongoing or planned for the next days. NATO is transporting heavy equipment to the eastern flank because Russian shelling is coming closer and closer to Poland's borders. I should add, he sent me this email before the Russians attacked the air base that was more westerly in Ukraine. Okay, so this is quite a prescient email. NATO is transporting heavy equipment to the eastern flank because Russian shelling is coming closer and closer to Poland's borders. The live cams are down because they don't want to be live tracked by anyone over the web, especially but not by the Russians, I guess, question mark. It's hard to say. I don't know. Maybe Russian hackers are on that. I don't know. Poland's President Duda is also stating that if there would be a use of chemical or biological weapons by the Russian armed forces inside Ukraine, NATO will have to step in. Is the stage being set? How many people in your circles are skeptical about the whole narrative? I'm guessing that 95% of people simply couldn't be bothered by any of this and are just going about their lives like business as usual, maybe paying attention to the headlines, changing their Facebook profile to the blue and white thing, but they really have no comprehension, not even remotely scratching the surface of how deep we go. So that's scary. So yeah, prepare to go off grid because soon we're going to have no choice. Okay, does he know more than we do? Is he just not careful about what he's saying in public? Is this the red line they were not talking about? I only got this from the media. Sure, you can look it up yourself if you already did. Germany is planning to reactivate the compulsory military service for all healthy male over the age of 18. This is, of course, coincident with Germany raising their military expenditures along with other countries like China. Currently, the German armed forces are a professional army. In the event of war, they can provide about 180,000 troops. With a compulsory military service, they might be able to provide 10 times as many troops as they are now, aka cannon fodder. Okay? According to major economic institutes here in Europe, the inflation rate until mid-22 is about to increase to more than 12% in the EU. Translation, that means about 20 to 30% in terms of the commodities, because we all know it is the fixed expenses that go up the most, and it's those non-fixed expenses like cheap TV sets to brainwash the masses with, which of course the price on those they'll make sure that that stays the same so you can have some way to kill the pain. The plants of all major car makers here in Europe are standing still right now. They're facing a massive shortage in electronic parts, aka chips, and wiring harness parts, which are being produced mainly in the Ukraine, but also in Russia-dependent countries like Kazakhstan. This all doesn't look good for us, for the world. You can turn it in any way you want. It's just getting worse. Let's face the music. We will have a major war very soon. And yes, the information that I have to share with you guys right away is going to, unfortunately, corroborate that. Now, remember, Taiwan is so important with respect to this chip shortage right now. And if China was to make a move, boy, we would be in a huge world of hurt in terms of ongoing supply chain disruptions. This situation is about to get really bad. Most people have no idea how bad this is going to get. Now, I want to say something else. When the US dollar ceases to be the global reserve currency, right now, the US has the most powerful military in the world. I'll explain to you how this works, the best way I can understand it. Let's say you have a lot of stuff, okay? And let's say you have a lot of money. Let's say you have a lot of gold. You want to put that gold somewhere. You're going to put that gold in the vault, which is guarded by the biggest guns you can imagine, because you don't want somebody to rob that vault. You don't want somebody to rob that vault. And who has the biggest guns? Well, it's the United States. That's why they have the golden credit card. Whoever has the biggest military in the world, whoever's the most powerful militarily, gets the global credit card, aka the global reserve currency. That has allowed the US to print money like you wouldn't believe. But guess what's going to happen now because of what has happened to Russia? See, the West has shot itself in the foot. All of these other big players in the space, China, India, Indonesia, even countries in Africa that are coming up, Nigeria, the Middle Eastern countries, they're all seeing what's happening to Russia right now, how they've been basically cut off from the global financial system, how they've had all their assets frozen virtually. And they're seeing the writing on the wall, and they're going to say to themselves, maybe we should divest before this happens to us, because these people can't be trusted. Now, when that happens, and as it gradually happens, you are going to see the dilution of the American currency as people start to ditch dollars for other commodities, for other currencies. And that, my friends, is when we are going to see blood in the streets. We are going to see hyperinflation like we've never thought possible, especially if we get decoupled and China cuts us off. And remember, China makes all the stuff. People are talking about, oh, we're going to sanction China and blah, blah, blah. You're going to sanction the country that puts all the products in your stores? Do you realize the upheaval and the poverty that would be unleashed? I'm not saying it's going to totally destroy us. Motown can come back to the United States. It's probably going to have to. It's not going to be no other choice. Okay, and hopefully by that time we got the robots to do stuff and the automation. But then we get universal basic income, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But the factories are going to come back, but it's going to take a long, long time. And in between now and then, there's going to be a world of hurt. That's why this is such a significant thing. That's why whether Russia loses or wins, the world is different. The US dollar is done. Anyways, I digressed. Canada's defense chief warns Russia has occupied Arctic bases. What? Wait, what? Why? Oh, could it be because they're on high nuclear alert? Yeah, I thought so. Canada's defense chief says protecting the country's Arctic region is a key priority for the armed forces, warning that Russia has reoccupied abandoned Cold War bases in its far north. I had somebody email me this article, by the way. Thank you very much, sir. Speaking at defense conference in Ottawa, General Wayne Eyre said defending NATO's northern flank is a key area of concern for the Canadian military. Eyre said the threat of a Russian incursion into Canada's Arctic from the north is very low at the moment, but the general said it could not be ruled out in the decades to come. Well, how generous to say decades and not months. That's what he's thinking. He was answering questions about whether Russia could extend its territorial ambitions to Canada's Arctic region or even invade Canada from the north. And they absolutely could. There's nothing up there. There's one base called Alert, and I don't even know how operational it is. I think there's something going on up there. There's a couple dozen guys or something defending the entire Arctic. So, we're pretty much sitting ducks. If you don't think that Russia could potentially make a move in the Arctic and annex certain parts of the Arctic region, then you're smoking a lot of good stuff that's probably now legal in Canada. Like I say, to kill the pain, right? Keep the TVs cheap, keep the weed flowing, and just keep everybody pacified and happy while this world burns around us. He said it is not inconceivable that our sovereignty may be challenged in the future from the north. The military needs to consider the long game and look for what else Russia is doing in the world. He said the far north is a key area of concern. You can go and check out that article if you want. Canada's defense chief warns Russia has occupied Arctic bases. All these articles are from reliable news, mainstream sources, okay? So if this is the irony with referencing the mainstream, we don't trust it, but it's still the de facto officiating media, so it is what it is, all right? Greetings, Canadian Prepper. This video was available 3 years ago. Foreshadowing of sorts. The video was about, I'll post a link to the video in the comment section below. It was a movie, a kind of made-for-TV style movie about a war which breaks out between NATO and Russia and Europe. I think it was made by the BBC. I'll post a link to it. You can check it out below. Okay, now I got another email here about a drone which crashed in the capital city of Croatia. It gets very specific, and I'm not going to read this one because there's just a lot of speculation in it. But he raises some interesting points, and it just kind of corroborates with the other story that I was talking about with the planes refueling, that there's a lot of suspicious activity in the skies around Ukraine, as you would expect right now. So definitely some things to consider. So I got another email from my source at the Red Cross. If you're not aware, prior to this war breaking out, while the truckers convoy and stuff was breaking out, the Red Cross wanted stuff sent to Ottawa basically on the day that they cracked down on the protests. We all suspected that that was for the purpose of creating some kind of detention camps for the protest, or at the time we were also suspecting that could have something to do with being shipped off to Ukraine. This was before the war had actually officially started. Basically, they're running really low on supplies, and there's a full mobilization across Europe right now. They are scrambling. I think, and I have a sneaking suspicion, that people within the Red Cross have various connections within certain intelligence agencies, which may give them the heads up as to what potential disaster or crisis is coming. And right now they're saying that a big crisis is potentially on the horizon. That's the gist of this email. It's written in there's so many acronyms that if I was to read it to you, it would just totally confuse you. But basically that's the gist of it, is that they're expecting a major, I'm not sure if they're just referring to the refugee crisis, which could potentially balloon to, I believe it was 7.2 million is the last statistic I heard for a potential worst case for the refugee crisis. Of course, remember before they were saying it could be 4 million, so that number could very well swell to even 10 million. Right now it's about 2.5 million, the last I heard. So that's a lot of refugees that are going to be sent into Europe. So what else do we got here? Pentagon saying that Russia is broadening its target set after an airstrike on Western Ukrainian airbase. So we see that Russia now is moving towards Poland. And this is risky, of course, for a variety of reasons, because now Russia is basically threatening to start to target these supply lines that are coming in, these weapons convoys that are coming in that are trying to resupply the Ukrainians. They're going to start targeting that, and that means they're going to get closer and closer to the border. And that also means that they're going to run the risk of getting closer and closer to targeting people who are with NATO, okay? Whether it's the reporter that we've seen today, the one documentary producer, famous documentary guy who recently was killed. And the more incidents like that you see, the greater the likelihood that NATO could potentially be drawn into a conflict. Now, Russia is claiming that they've hit 3,000 military installations. And remember what the Russian strategy here, it's not to engage guys on the front lines. They are trying to go to the root of Ukraine's power, which is the command and control centers, okay? It's the munitions facilities. It's their energy facilities, taking control of Chernobyl, being able to, and the other nuclear power plants, being able to reroute or cut off certain places from accessing electricity. And this is likely going to create a major communications problem with the Ukrainians, which is going to continuously weaken them. And that is the approach they're taking. They're not going for, these small skirmishes. They're going for the root of the problem, not the shoot of the problem, both literally and figuratively. Now, this Iran missile strike situation was strange to me because it got basically no media coverage. Think about that. This would have been like huge news if they wanted it to be huge news. Iran literally shot and took credit for shooting a U.S. Military consulate or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the building was, but it was some U.S. military building in and around that. And this would have been huge news. And you know how CNN reported it? They reported it as missile hits airbase. And maybe the Iranians are taking credit for it. So instead of, in the past or in other times, they would be all in on the whole Iranians shooting missile at us thing. Now they're not even, that was clearly an opportunity for them to capitalize on that, but they didn't. I'm guessing the reason why is something to do with the fact that they're now going to be, I mean US is now going to be more dependent on Iranian oil, and this whole nuclear deal that they're trying to work out. And that is a sketchy situation in itself, guys. I really don't know what to make of that whole thing. It's out of my scope of understanding. So if somebody wants to chime in the comment section, if you know anything about how the whole dynamic between Russia, the Iran nuclear situation, Iran selling oil to the United States is going to play out in the future, and then how Israel plays into that, and why are the Saudis pissed off? Why did the Saudis just behead? I think it was a record. They beheaded, largest max execution in recent memory. Saudi Arabia executes 81 men in one day. Apparently there was some like attempted coup that they suspected or something like that. So it's very serious. And now Saudi Arabia is giving the US the cold shoulder. Okay, this is the country that the US has basically propped up. Okay, wanted to sell them F-35s, but now they're not selling them F-35s, and the Saudis are pissed. So what is happening in the Middle East? There's this whole, there's a shift in the alliances there. It's strange. Because remember, the Saudis and the Iranians, they historically don't like each other, because I think it's Sunni Shiite, right? So, yeah, it's interesting to see what's developing there. Are they starting to unify with Russia? And if that's the case, and if the U.S. loses its foothold in the Middle East, Israel's going to have some problems, definitely. And I think Israel's interests right now are kind of at odds with the U.S. interests, because the U.S. needs that Iranian oil now. So does Europe. But they also need to be on good terms with the Iranians. And in doing that, that means the Iranians get the nuclear deal. Israel doesn't want the nuclear deal. You know, in Israel and the United States are like this, right? So what does that all mean? Anyways, it's a crazy situation. You got the Israeli prime minister flying to Russia, and he's buddies with Zelensky, but he's also buddies with Putin. It's just a weird state of affairs out there, isn't it? Man. Okay, this one. China rattled by calls for Japan to host U.S. nuclear weapons. This is a big one. Could you imagine if they put nukes in Japan, how that's going to make China feel? Oh boy, if you really wanted to isolate China even more and get them to buddy up with the Russians even more, put nukes in Japan. Great idea. Boy, we are on the brink. Guys, I think that's all I have for you guys today. And I think I've spoken long enough. Let me know what you guys think about all this jibber jabber in the comment section below. Guys, it's going to get rough. No matter how you slice it at this point, it's going to get ugly. Uglier than you can possibly imagine right now. I just feel sorry for people in Europe, because a lot of people in Europe have no idea what's coming. If you think it's going to be bad here, I mean, people have been saying, Nate, your eyes are bloodshot. Like I had a buddy say yesterday, you look like you're losing sleep and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not the one ducking in a bomb shelter in Ukraine. I'm not the one that has had to flee my home in Ukraine. I'm not the one fighting on the front lines, okay? So I got it easy right now. These are good times, okay? It's going to be all downhill from here. I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry to be the realist in the room, but that's just a fact of life. If you are burnt out now, then the bad news is that it's going to get a lot worse, okay, guys? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, Canadian Prepper out.